On March 12, 2011, at 8 a.m., Rachel Ordley, the manager of the Lululemon store, arrived at work as she did every day to open the shop. Noticing that the door was unlocked, she assumed it was carelessness on the part of the person responsible for closing the store the previous evening. When Rachel entered the premises, the lights were off, and clothes and accessories were scattered everywhere. Seeing this scene, she realized the store had been robbed, so she shouted and asked if anyone was there. In response, she heard a groan that terrified her, and she rushed outside to call the police. Next door to Lululemon was an Apple store, which only opened at 10 a.m. But a man named Ryan Hawk was waiting outside. Rachel asked him if he could accompany her into Lululemon, and Ryan agreed, unaware of the context of her request. The day before, the second-generation iPad tablets had been released. According to Ryan, he was waiting for the Apple store to open to buy one of those products. When they entered Lululemon, Rachel asked the man to go to the back of the store to check where the groan she had heard earlier was coming from. Ryan went into the storage area, saw a body lying face down in a pool of blood, and shouted to the manager to call the police. As it appeared, there was a dead person there. As the man was leaving the storage area, he noticed another woman there with her hands tied. She seemed unconscious, but it was clear she was breathing. Ryan told Rachel that there was a lifeless body lying there and another woman who was still alive, and that it looked like both had been subjected to violence. At that moment, the manager made a second call to the police. Officers arrived quickly at the scene. It was around 8:20 when they encountered the horrific sight. The store appeared to have been robbed. One of the women lay dead in a pool of blood, completely mutilated, while the other was alive but unresponsive, bound with tape and wounded in the face. These were Lululemon employees: Jayna Murray, the deceased woman, and Brittany Norwood, the survivor of the attack. Both had worked the evening shift and closed around 10 p.m. That meant someone had entered just before closing and attacked the women. It was still unclear whether this was a robbery or revenge, or if Jayna had tried to protect the store and was killed for it, while Brittany perhaps complied with the criminal's demands and survived. Brittany Norwood was taken on a stretcher to Suburban Hospital to have her wounds treated and to determine if she needed hospitalization. At that point, they didn't yet know how serious her injuries were. There were visible lacerations on her chest, legs, arms, and forehead, but the most striking was a 5-centimeter cut on the thumb of her right hand. These might have been sustained while trying to defend herself when attacked with a knife. Jayna Murray's lifeless body was taken to the medical examiner's office, where an autopsy was performed. The results were shocking, as the attack was brutal, with far more severe injuries than those on her colleague, suggesting that perhaps she had indeed tried to resist the robber, or there was a possibility that Jayna was the specific target, and the person had entered the premises intent on murder. The autopsy revealed that Jayna Murray's body had a total of 330 wounds, indicating an extremely vicious attack, which typically implies it was fueled by rage. The question arises: who could have been so enraged or harbored such hatred to inflict that many strikes? This wasn't just murder, it was torture. During most of the wounds being inflicted, Jayna remained alive, meaning the victim was conscious for the majority of the torment. Based on the number of wounds, it could be concluded that this was a deeply personal attack by someone who despised her. At the crime scene, forensic experts also discovered one of the most crucial pieces of evidence: a bloody footprint from a size 46 athletic shoe. They concluded that it was left by the person who committed these attacks. Both women who became victims had athletic backgrounds. Jayna Murray was born in Houston, Texas, on November 22, 1980. At the time of her murder, she was 30 years old. Her family consisted of her parents, David and Phyllis, herself, and 2 siblings. Everyone described her as a very positive woman. Jayna also traveled the world. In particular, she even went to study in China. There, she took the opportunity to travel around Asia and also visited Japan. One of her passions was maintaining her health, exercising, and especially yoga. On her last birthday, when she turned 30, Jayna filmed herself bungee jumping. This also speaks to her being an open and cheerful woman. Her fanaticism for sports began at an early age. Jayna participated in all kinds of sports and dance. She studied ballet, jazz, tap, volleyball, and much more. Some details of Jayna's life also include her love for Mexican cuisine. Moreover, every year on her birthday, her family would go to her favorite Mexican restaurant to remember her. The truth is, everyone in her life spoke only good things about her. No one could understand why Jayna suffered, why she was killed. Investigators questioned everyone, even her boyfriend whom she was planning to marry, but no one had a motive. Apparently, Jayna had no enemies, but someone secretly hated her anyway. After college, the young woman moved to Arlington, Virginia, to pursue higher education at Johns Hopkins University. It was during this time that Jayna went to the Lululemon store in that city looking for a job. But the store told her they weren't hiring salespeople, and that the Montgomery County store in Bethesda, Maryland, was hiring. The Maryland store was a half-hour drive away, but she didn't want to miss the opportunity since she loved the brand. Jayna sent her resume and was hired a few days later. She got the position not only because of her knowledge of yoga but also thanks to her charisma. Jayna became one of Lululemon's top salespeople. Unlike Jayna, Brittany, the second victim of the attack, had a somewhat more difficult life. Brittany Norwood was born into a poor family with 8 siblings, and she didn't have as many reasons to smile. By her own account, she and her family constantly suffered from racism. Despite this, her classmates noted that she maintained her composure and was very cheerful. Sports helped her with this, particularly soccer, as Brittany didn't play it in her school but became one of the star players in her area. Thanks to soccer, she received a scholarship to attend Stony Brook University in New York. Her dream was to play soccer for the official U.S. women's national team and participate in a World Cup. Unfortunately, lack of money and opportunities cut that dream short. Brittany studied sociology at the university in New York, where she had a scholarship. But then she moved to Arlington, Virginia, where she had 2 jobs, at a hotel and at the Lululemon store. However, according to some reports, shortly before the attack, she was transferred to the Montgomery County store. Both women were living in Arlington at the time of the attack, leading different lives but equally drawn to sports. They could have become targets for a criminal stalking them with intent to harm. Tragically, one of them died, but at least one woman survived, perhaps to restore justice for her colleague. At the crime scene, the first details were uncovered: the bloody male footprint and a knife, which was the primary weapon of the attack. Although investigators noted that multiple items from the store were used to inflict all the wounds on Jayna's body. Additionally, 3 bundles of cash were missing from the safe. We must not forget that one woman survived the attack. Brittany Norwood's story could explain what happened and who was responsible. At least, her description could lead the police to a breakthrough. The robbery suggested it might have been the primary motive, but the number of wounds didn't match typical robberies. In most cases, robbers don't intend to kill unless they must when discovered or if the person refuses to comply. Moreover, such killings usually happen quickly, often with firearms. However, the attack on Jayna was carried out with a knife, and the perpetrator took time to torture her. On March 12th at 2:35 p.m., the first interview with Brittany Norwood took place at Suburban Hospital. She recounted that the attack was not by one person but that 2 masked men entered the premises. One dealt with Jayna, while the other attacked her. According to her version, she was assaulted with a coat hanger. Brittany couldn't provide more details about what happened, as she was under the influence of sedatives. The officers agreed to interview her again in the coming days if she remembered anything else. That same day, investigators questioned employees at the neighboring Apple store, which was open until 11 p.m. knowing the attacks must have occurred around that time. They asked if anyone had seen anything. Then the first witness emerged, who had only heard voices. This person said he heard 2 female voices. One shouted, "Talk to me. Don't do this. Tell me what's going on." The other female voice said, "Oh my God. Help me. Please help." Then he heard only screams and moans, and when everything went quiet, the man noted a sound like someone dragging something. Despite this, the witness, an Apple employee, surprisingly didn't call the police. He simply reported it to the security guard, who went to check the Lululemon store. The guard looked in the window and noted nothing unusual, then returned to the store. This employee also said that later he reported the fact to the Apple store manager and that around 11 p.m., he left work, and by then, there was no more noise. The detectives on the case went to Brittany Norwood's home to see if she remembered anything else about the incident. When they entered the house, the woman, still in some pain, invited them into the living room for a conversation. There, they asked if she had recalled anything in the last 2 days to help identify the two men she mentioned. Then Brittany tried to explain how the events unfolded. She said that when the two men entered the premises, one went straight to her, while the other grabbed Jayna. Brittany described the attackers as white men in ski masks and, based on their voices, estimated they were around 25 to 27 years old. She noted that her attacker was about 165 centimeters tall, while Jayna's was slightly taller, around 180 centimeters. They were dressed in black and wearing gloves. Brittany also recounted that after her colleague was killed, her attacker went to rob the store, while the other began tormenting her. When she started talking about Jayna's murder and the abuse against her, she began to cry. Clearly, Brittany had endured something traumatic, but the investigators needed as much information as possible, since she was the sole survivor and the only eyewitness at the scene. Brittany also noted that the man told her, "Your name is Brittany and you live on such and such street," which terrified her even more. But she also told the investigators that, in her opinion, during the robbery, the criminals likely saw 2 bills in her wallet for internet and gas, which had her name and address, and which, she said, were stolen. Another detail Brittany didn't mention was that the attacker, while tormenting her, began insulting her and even making racist remarks. After the abuse, the man pushed her onto Jayna's body, which by then was lifeless. The detectives asked Brittany if her family was supporting her, to which she replied yes, that she had talked to her family about returning to Seattle to be safe. But she mentioned that she had recently gotten a new job in Bethesda and was looking forward to starting work once she recovered from her injuries. Since the attackers knew Brittany's address, the detectives gave her a direct contact in case one of them showed up at her home. But upon analyzing the collected evidence, the detectives discovered something new, something that didn't add up. Among this evidence was a medical report that caught their attention. It stated that Brittany Norwood had not been sexually assaulted. Additionally, it described the injuries found on her body, several on her arms and several on her legs. But the most noticeable were cuts on her forehead, scratches on her back, and the 5-centimeter cut on the thumb of her right hand. Compared to the wounds inflicted on Jayna, what was done to Brittany was almost trivial. But why would she lie about the assault? On the other hand, another witness emerged. Brittany and Jayna's supervisor recalled a situation from the night of the attack. She said that around 10 p.m., Brittany called her and said she had forgotten her wallet in the store and asked her to contact Jayna to come back and open the door for her. Jayna was the one who locked the store every evening, and only she had the key. For days after the attack, investigators began to suspect that Brittany might be hiding something. Thus, she became a person of interest in the investigation. Since Brittany wasn't needed for hair and fingerprint samples, the investigators told her they needed to meet with her that same day to continue the interview. They never told her she was a person of interest. They only said the samples were to eliminate her presence at the crime scene, which is a standard procedure usually done if someone at the scene is not a suspect. But obviously, the goal was to check if they could prove that Brittany had actually committed the attack. And this was crucial, as it was here they might find inconsistencies in her story, already knowing she could be a suspect. The interview lasted 2 hours and 55 minutes. The first hour was spent taking samples. The remaining time was used to question Brittany about her statements. She repeatedly mentioned that the attackers were 2 white men. She was asked if she knew what car Jayna drove, to which she replied she didn't know. Brittany provided other details, talked about fearing encountering one of them, and cried when speaking about Jayna. The investigators let her go, asking her to return on March 18th at 10 a.m. The officers were waiting for decisive evidence to make an arrest. And such evidence came from surveillance footage from the parking lot near Lululemon, where Brittany was seen alone driving the victim's car. The March 18th interview, Brittany's 4th, started normally. She said she was excited about the prospect of moving to Seattle, where she would live with her brother Chris. But the only thing bothering her about the move was that she wanted to continue helping with the investigation. Then the lead detective asked Brittany again about Jayna's car, and she again replied that she didn't know what car her colleague drove. After that, the detective showed her a photo depicting Brittany parking Jayna's car in a lot several blocks from the scene on the night of the attack. Then Brittany said the attackers forced her to move the car there and that they were constantly watching her. She further noted that upon arriving at that lot, she saw a police car but didn't call for help, allegedly fearing for her life. However, she couldn't have been seen from the Lululemon store because after 2 blocks, she turned right, making it impossible to see her. This didn't align with her statements about being watched. Then the detective told Brittany he didn't believe her story, that there were inconsistencies, and that it was all fabricated. She was read her rights and arrested on suspicion of murdering Jayna Murray. By this time, several pieces of physical evidence had been revealed. DNA from under Jayna's nails confirmed that the scratch on Brittany's back was inflicted by Jayna during the attack, likely in self-defense. Although not many surveillance recordings were found, those that existed showed only Brittany. But there were no 2 men in ski masks. Additionally, the woman had never been sexually assaulted. She concealed details in her statements and changed many others to make it seem like the attack was committed by 2 people. The prosecution also had witnesses against Brittany, teammates from her soccer team at the university in New York, who said Brittany was sweet but had a small problem. She was a kleptomaniac. She constantly stole, resulting in her expulsion from the university and loss of her scholarship. It was also proven that the wound on the thumb of her right hand was sustained when she attacked Jayna. Furthermore, it was established that she had tied her own hands to simulate an attack. Several wounds on her body were self-inflicted, and she had lied to authorities for several days, as well as to her family, who believed for months that Brittany was innocent. Beyond all this, it was proven that the bloody male footprint found in the store was made by Brittany herself using a sneaker that was later found in the store. The most challenging part of the trial was proving why Brittany brutally killed Jayna, what the motive was. As evidence, 5 items were presented that Brittany allegedly used to inflict wounds on Jayna's body: a hammer, a dagger, a coat hanger, a stick taken from one of the clothing racks, and a Swiss Army knife. It was proven that the motive wasn't theft of money, as the missing cash from the safe was found hidden in the same premises. The trial began in October. The amount of evidence was so overwhelming that Brittany Norwood pleaded guilty to committing the crime in self-defense and claimed the attack occurred after Jayna said nasty things to her and attacked her first. The trial lasted 6 days, and the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder. On January 27, 2012, the judge delivered the verdict, sentencing her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It's clear that she killed Jayna. The evidence proves it, and she partially admitted to killing her, though claiming self-defense. But the question remains, why? Although the prosecution described the attack as revenge for being caught stealing a pair of athletic pants, Brittany never explained the true reasons for what happened between them, what made the attack so aggressive. Many believe the true motive was envy. Brittany envied Jayna's life and that perhaps the murder wasn't over a petty theft, but because Brittany wanted Jayna's life, something she could never have due to her poverty. Friends, what do you think about this story? Share your opinions in the comments, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel and other social networks. You'll find links to them in the description below this video. We're not saying goodbye.